Hi, everyone. We're back in our new season, and we're going to continue the conversation regarding all things in the month of January 2025 and how it applies to life and education. So, my name's Traci Bondi. I'm one of the co hosts of Struggle for Change.
And I'm Emily Hendricks, your second co host.
And Valerie Son, your third co host for this exciting Struggle for Change episode today, where we're going to talk about what's going on politically that is influencing or driving a lot of fear in students, families, teachers, educators, literally everyone around the entire United States of America.
And beyond too, right? Like it's hitting other countries as well. So gosh, it's last week of January and we're in our third week with the new administration, if I have my dates right. So we know we've been watching a lot of information. Some of it has been false, some of it has been confusing, and some of it has been spot on the topic of ICE raids in schools. So let's open it up. Let's have a conversation. What are we thinking? How are we feeling? And what are the concerns that we have as long-standing educators in California?
Well, schools have always been safe havens for students, right? Schools are a place where we make it so that families feel safe to drop off their children to come and get an education. And we've always known that in public education, in California, I don't know if it applies in all other states, but in California, free public education is a right, no matter the immigration status of the child. We do not collect any information on immigration status, on citizenship status, or anything of that sort. You want to come to school? You bring your proof of address. Parents, you bring your proof of address along with a utility bill. And if the utility bill happens to not be in your name, then if it's in your landlord's name, then you bring your landlord's letter saying that, yes, you are currently renting at this place or living at this place. And boom, you are enrolled in school, and your school becomes a safe place for you to send your children to school. And the children are here, they are happy, and they have a routine, and they have free meals, and they're able to learn and eat and play and socialize with their friends.
Right. And that goes for like hospitals and libraries too, like public spaces
Churches.
that can feel, yeah, churches that can feel more private, or where we don't, we want to be able to give people a sense of safety in whatever situation you're in. And yeah, that's always been like the motto for schools is like, if you are in our district, in our zone, you are more than welcome, to learn and to have a community.
Exactly.
And it's kind of interesting in that this sort of general, like, I'm going to call it like a fear tactic, is currently in motion right now to help to make those families that are maybe in some part of that, like maybe they're trying to apply for asylum, or maybe there are just some certain family members that are not documented and some are, or maybe, I mean, even recently I heard that they're in court, like arguing for, Native American, what are they calling it?
Citizenship.
Yeah, just
Birthright.
birthright
Right.
citizenship. All of that, impacts who we are used to be able to just freely allow into our classrooms. And I know it's still that way now, but I feel like there's so much disruption with what people are forced to reckon with just psychologically right now.
Well, and financially too. So as an example, we saw in the state of California right after November that the Newsom administration declared the state of California safe harbor for any trans people that wanted to come. They could come and they would have protected status. Fast forward, what we understood were when they first talked about these ICE raids that were going to occur in workplaces only, that it would literally be in workplaces only in search of bad actors. And then they lifted, and by executive order, they lifted the notion that there are places that are protected, like churches and schools, from ICE officers. So now the idea is that ICE can go anywhere. They can go into a grocery store, they can knock on your door, they can show up at your school, they can show up where you worship, and that is all 100% legal as of today. So what I'm seeing across the state in districts is a lot of districts, at least in California, they were getting ready at their next board meeting to declare their districts safe places. They're now pausing on that because the administration very clearly articulated that they are going to go after these places first.
And that's just crazy, right? I mean, if you want to instill fear in people where they're supposed to feel safe and you're like, now it's no longer safe. And this is the space where parents leave their children for an extended period of time. I have some kiddos who are here at 7:45 in the morning and the parents don't pick them up until 6 o'clock at night. That is almost like 10 something hours, right? Or 11 some odd hours. And they are just like, what if something were to happen? And
Mhm.
I know that it's not at my school, but at my neighboring school, the principal shared with me that on Tuesday, so the day after the inauguration, on Tuesday, she had several parents call in and said, hi, I am not bringing my children into school today. They will be missing school because I do not feel safe in dropping my kids off at school. We don't know what to do, but we don't feel safe, so we're not going to bring our kids to school today. We're very sorry. Can you please give us some work for us to do? We're just going to stay home, stay put. We're scared.
Mhm.
And that was when I kind of asked on social media, I asked my educator friends if their schools have posted a message of safe haven, right? Or a message of some sort. And I know that in my school district, we had passed a resolution back on our board meeting in early January before the inauguration. However, that message wasn't sent out to all the families yet. So the families didn't know where we stood, which is why there was this fear, right? And so at our next staff meeting, I was like, hi, are we going to share a message? Can we please share a message? And I was really happy to learn that we shared our message today. It was sent out to
Good.
all the families. But at the same time, because the message was sent out at my school, we received phone calls from
Mm.
parents who were like, do I need to now worry about this? Is this something that I need to stress about? And then started sharing with us their immigration status, right? And so I had to inform my staff, like, if family members start telling you about it, let them know that they do not have to tell you about their immigration status. Like, the less information we know, the better. And we're waiting now for protocol. If officers were to come in to ask for student information, what can we provide, what do we provide, and what would be the consequences of not providing this type of information.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know that reading in the news in the past couple days here with articles related to the ICE potential raids and how it's impacting schools. A lot of districts are saying that they're being very clear and making it a part of their policy to, if someone comes to the school that identifies themselves as an ICE agent, to here are the three things we're going to say to them, and we want to make sure they have a signed warrant from an actual judge so that they're not trying to just barge in with like a fake like document or an unsigned document. And I would imagine that a lot of schools, maybe in demographic areas that are impacting multiple families, that they're probably being having to be a little more proactive on the language to use if you're confronted, which is just really, it's like a reality check right now, but at the same time, it's like it's important to have those pieces in place so that people can start having that in the back of their mind just in case. But yeah, it reminds me a whole lot of when, like, the early days of COVID, when everyone was trying to
Mhm.
figure out how do we communicate what's happening that we have no control over to families in a way that brings them a sense of comfort, in a way of that, like, the school is on top of it, and even if we don't all have the answers. So I hope that these schools that are the school that where I work is not, I wouldn't say it's directly impacted because we're an independent school, and we, not that we don't have any maybe undocumented students, but I don't, it's just a different kind of setup, a different kind of framework, because we don't have a physical school. But it could very well still impact maybe some students, I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like this is even affecting students at the university level because I was having this conversation with some friends, right? So my best friend is now sending me all the information that she receives here and there as a healthcare worker, you know, and she's also a doctoral student right now. And from her university, they sent out a message that said support for students regarding recent immigration orders. And they're like, if you are here in the United States and you are not sure about your, and you don't have full citizenship here, limit international travel. Like
Mm.
at this time, we strongly advise non citizens to avoid international travel unless absolutely necessary. Two, carry documentation. Non citizens should always carry documentation that demonstrates lawful presence in the United States. If you are uncertain about your status or have questions, we encourage you to consult an immigration attorney for assistance. Number three, demonstrate physical presence. For any individuals who may not be certain about their lawful presence, we recommend carrying proof that you have been physically present in the United States for at least 2 years to avoid being subject to expedited removal. And number four, know your rights. If approached by immigration enforcement, you have the right to remain silent, refrain from signing any documents presented to you, request a hearing, ask for an attorney. And so this is universities sending out information to their students, knowing that they have international students on their campuses. And it is affecting everybody. And then you have people who are just passing on fake news or creating fake news under anonymous names and or just choosing to post anonymously on social media, right? And it's just so frustrating because how do you tell truth from the untruth? And are we being overcautious? But I also wonder, like, with the Chicago public schools, where they were, when the article first came out on Friday, they were like, oh, it was ICE knocking on our doors to go check out students. And then we refused to let them in. And then later on with the correction, it was not ICE, it was the Secret Service. But here's my question. What is the Secret Service doing at an elementary school? At what point would the Secret Service need to go to an elementary school to look at students? Like, what is
Right.
going on?
Well, and it makes me
Just,
wonder too about the engine of social media and how we've already seen that it can be used, for bad or for good with whoever's in leadership at that time with of the company in question. But I feel like with TikTok specifically, I use it I watch videos as part of my education, just as a part of seeing what actual real people are going through, or maybe teaching about or talking about or showing, whether that's educational content or not. And at the same time, it's like we already know that from what I'm seeing, that there is this fear machine, you know, put out there. And I think especially with these particular topics of fragility right now with ICE and with maybe the federal freezing of funding, and we need to be careful, I think, right in this moment of especially TikTok and what's been happening with TikTok, and now it's fully functioning again for the time being. It just makes me wonder, like, why do they really want us to use this platform still, and it's just another reminder to be extra vigilant, I think, about what like, yes, this is happening, and yes, it makes me afraid, or yes, it makes me nervous, or whatever the emotion is, depending on what you're experiencing. And it's important to look to also at least try to look at the why, like what might be, motivating that decision, or what.
The action. Well, right. Because I'm going to bring it back to the deportation. This is not first time we've seen this administration, who's now in their second term, second rodeo, actually conduct deportation efforts. And as everyone remembers, because there is video and there are real photographs, and it was a very real thing when the administration separated families and put children in holding areas. I'm not going to say cages because that's such a silly term, but they were holding areas
Mhm.
with fencing and cement floor in warehouses. More than 3,000 families were separated. More than 3,000 kids sat in those spaces not knowing where their parents were. The parents were in other countries, not knowing where their children were. And that was very real. That was a very real stain on our history, one that we seemed as a country to have forgotten when we brought up all this immigration talk again, because there wasn't a concern then about separating families, just like there, I think, is no concern now. They are preparing for a mass deportation effort. I think it's real. And I believe that our best effort of trying to support our families, support our staff, be active in our communities is around awareness and education. Know your rights, share your rights, keep an eye open. If you see something, say something.
And I do want to just add, as a person of color, my white folks, you have so much privilege. Please use your privilege.
Oh, yeah.
Use your privilege to
Yeah.
protect other folks, right? Use your privilege to be the outspoken one. Use your privilege to record the videos, use your privilege to do all the things to stand up for the minority, because your voice is so much stronger than ours and you are needed. And I am especially calling on our white males. Please, you are the
Please.
most privileged I want to say internationally, you are the most privileged, the most looked up to. Your voices are strong. So please exercise the privilege that you have. If there is any time at all, this is like the time to exercise your privilege, right? And to help protect others.
Yeah, I mean, you all, it's just been tragic. We're in California, so we're hearing the very real reports of what has transpired since the first ice raid that occurred in Bakersfield. That was a very real ice raid. That was not a dry run. They literally removed farm workers, the same farm workers that we rely on for our food. And now in California, anyway, I don't know what's happening in other countries or states, but I did see that Texas is now being faced with some of these same questions about, if we remove all of these individuals, who will take care of picking crops and working in offices?
Things are going to get more
But
expensive.
even if we just went to just food alone, in California, we're going to be crippled. Texas is going to be crippled. Washington is going to be crippled. And all to fulfill the Project 2025 game plan of removing anybody of color from the country. I mean, I'm sorry, this is racist. It's racist when you
100%.
say, you got to go and you got to go and you got to go. And Valerie, my dear, you should be carrying your papers too, because you're not white.
I know. And I'm just like, with the instructions, right? Like, carry your papers. I'm like, do I now carry my passport around everywhere? And
And you should know whether or not you should.
right, right. And it just sounds silly. And this is a side note, right? About 10 years ago, I lost my passport, like just completely lost it in a move. And I'm not born here. So the only birth certificate that I found was my birth certificate in Chinese. It wasn't even like an officially translated one. And that was like digging and digging and some more digging to try to get a passport again, because I didn't even have a copy. They wouldn't take a picture because I had a picture of my previous one, the one that I lost. But they're like, sorry, we can't take a picture. We need to see the old book for you to apply for. I was like, but if it's lost, don't you have my information already? Like, isn't my record in there? You could check. Yeah. But they would not do it for me.
Really?
Like, they would not. Like, I went to 3 different post offices, and it was my 4th one where I just started crying. And maybe the lady at the post office felt really bad for me. And then she was like, okay, hon, come over here. Let me take a better look at what you got. And she was the one who helped me and got me my paperwork back so that I could have a passport again. But I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought I would have to prove my citizenship ever. But here I was, like, trying to prove my citizenship, that I belonged in the United States just because I lost my passport.
And fast forward 2025, can you imagine?
Right.
If you had to do that today,
I know exactly where my passport is, but that's because of the fires, right? I had to like put all my important documents all in one place so that I could just grab and go. So it's crazy times right now.
it really is. And I would say I don't want us as, responsible, educated professionals to put our head in the sand. I don't want us to pretend that things aren't happening. But at the same time, I think we have to be aware of our surroundings and looking at multiple sources, having multiple conversations. When we do hear of something that is happening, to actually speak power to it.
Yeah, and just try to
Yes.
remain centered and grounded in just knowing that there's hope and there's strength and community, and any emotion you're feeling is valid, and also know that you also at the same time can feel empowered, and you don't need to live in fear even if you feel afraid at this moment. I believe that part of that is just a tactic for someone else to get what they want. And it's impacting a lot of us in different ways, but keep yourself grounded and know that whatever is happening, it will be resolved in some way, that as long as you have a positive outlook and remain hopeful.
I
Yeah, I
keep
mean, I hope you're right,
mm,
Emily. I really hope you're right that this is just a lot of scare tactics. All the executive orders, all the freezing of funds, all of the preparations for placements of families that are not considered legitimate in this country. I hope that it's all fear and that we're not going to see this mass exodus, although I will tell you, I'm on the other side of that thinking where I feel like it's super real. And we got all kinds of people questioning, like, are they really, they're not really going to, now, they're not really going to do that. And I'm thinking, well, they are, because they already did.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I'm going to add on to that. So I I'm not trying to say that I don't think it's happening to people right now. I just think that there's two parts to it, though. I feel that the reason that they're putting it in the media and communicating these things in the way that they are, I feel, is a psychological tactic for everybody in this country. They can use what's happening, that is happening, as examples, potentially, as means of trying to guide people to buy into whatever government they're trying to
Pedal.
present to us.
mhm.
And so, again, I'm not saying that it's not happening, and I totally want to put that across. Like, I empathize with people that are in that situation. And I also think that, like, we also need to be careful of not living in fear, because that can
Yeah.
also influence decision making.
Mhm.
When you, whether it's real or not, whatever the thing is, whatever choice you make in believing that is the choice, that is the path that you're going to go on, that you're giving maybe permission for this thing to happen.
I also read some where they're making all these things pass right now, and they've got control of the media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Possibly, and just making all of these things go through just to overload the general, like the good organizers who are usually organizing against these things. So they would feel so overloaded, stressed out, burnt out, right? That when the actual more serious things come along, they would be so burnt out already that they just can't organize as much. Like when the real action is going to take place to organize, right? And that's a really scary thought, because I'm like, I think the ACLU is already on everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, can you imagine the folks at ACLU just being tired?
Yeah.
They've been tired.
They've been tired, but then it's like, here you are, the defenders. Or I'm also thinking of like public defenders, right? Like these people need rest, and they're probably not going to get any rest. And if this is just like just the tip of the iceberg that we're seeing, they're doing a really good job in scaring us and burning us out, where we're going to feel it's the shock factor is going to be gone. And we're just going to be like, oh, just another one. Let's just let it happen again. And hopefully
Yeah.
we're not. Like, I definitely don't want that to happen at all. But it's just, it's scary.
Yeah, they're calling it like, well, it's been so before we started recording, I was just talking about how I read this book a couple times now, well, it's been about a couple of years since I read it last, but it's so relevant right now. It's called On Tyranny, and not to do a deep dive in that, but one of the main lessons from that is just don't opt in advance. Don't decide in advance that like this is too much and I'm just gonna let it happen because it's too much work to try to whatever, and that's what we really need to be careful of in our communities, I think, and in your role as an educator or as an ambassador of some kind for people that might be more impacted than you.
As a human being,
Right.
as a human being on the planet, right? What is going to be our threshold? Because we already surpassed it when, as a nation, even though it was a low turnout, it was enough of a turnout between the popular vote and the Electoral College to put the Trump administration in for a second term. So we've seen what is possible, and now we're going to see it on steroids, because the efforts that were made in the first time around, some of that was squashed by courts that were level-headed. I will not say politically motivated. Some of it was squashed by cabinet members who knew better and believed in our country. But those things are different now. The reality is that these topics of deportation and who's a citizen and who isn't a citizen, and who qualifies and who doesn't, it's been settled. Just like Roe versus Wade has been settled, just like trans rights as of today and DEI has been settled. Now, that doesn't mean we can't fight it. That doesn't mean we can't, at all these different states, like 22 states already said, you cannot do this. This is blatantly illegal.
But illegal according to whom? If there are no more laws, right? If there
and there's no more inspector generals, and there's no more, you know what I mean? Like, he fired all the inspector generals over the weekend. Those are individuals that are not party bound. They are there to make sure that funding is used correctly, that laws are followed. He fired all of them, not a couple. They're all gone.
Yeah.
So when we think, let's just wait and see. That's what, if we have that wait and see attitude, I'm with you, Emily. This is not a time to wait and see.
Right.
This is the time to be very clear about who you are, where you are, and how can you help.
Yeah. And just
so Valerie,
knowing oh yeah, go ahead.
I was to say, Valerie, I was sharing before we started recording. I said, some of the stuff that's going on, we're in San Jose, we're in ultra liberal, well-funded California. We are really fine. So when I watched that red wave across the country, I thought it's not going to impact us in the same way that it's going to impact a family in poverty in the middle of Montana who can't pay their bills, or a family in Florida who might have a trans kid who now has to worry more than they've ever had to worry about whether or not they're going to be subjected to hate crime. I'm not even talking about law. I'm just talking about the mentality out there, right?
Well, and even I worry even more about the way that these things are communicated to someone in a red state, even like lower helping middle class, in lower class to have jobs and have incomes, but like, is that happening? Are we representing our core values as a democracy? Are we representing the statements and the documents that we wrote as a new country in the 1700s? Like, were we the first to populate the Americas? Were we the original people that were born here in this area, in these regions? Mexican American, hundreds of years before any white person stepped foot. People
and
from all
they're
over
also
Latin
being
America.
excused. They're also being encouraged to go. Your time here is done, and take the Native Americans with you, because they're not really citizens either.
Mm-hmm. And like, I saw something, to go back to TikTok again, but I saw an interesting clip about that an African American was produced, and they were explaining that, like, at least Black people and Asians know why they live here and know where they came from. And he was arguing that a lot of like people from Latin American countries or Latin American origins, like, they don't necessarily have as clear of a history, like, that is told to them and taught to us in school. They were, they were conquered and kind of scared out of the area through war, through conquest. It was like we are in their country. Like they have a right to populate this area. And so we have to be careful about the words that we say and how we define and frame who someone else is, according to us, right? And as our job in schools, it's like, I think it's an important initiative to just remain positive with these kids that are maybe told that, like, you don't belong here, your parent, like, how can we reinforce those positive values that we have held on to for this whole time, but even more so today? Like, you matter. You are a citizen of this, even if you're not a legal citizen, you're a citizen of this school. You can make a difference, and I think that is our work to do. It's hard, but we have to accept the task.
And let our
What do you think,
students,
Val?
yeah, we just really have to let our students know that they belong, right? They need to be here. Well, they don't need to be here, but we want them here. We want them here. We appreciate their presence every single day, and they are welcomed, they are loved, they feel safe, and that is our priority, that we want them here. And it's just, I got this email this afternoon where it was like, don't forget to, take care of yourself. Come to this teacher wellness session on Friday at 3 p.m. And I'm just like, is there time for wellness right now? 3 p.m.? Like, what?
On a Friday.
On a Friday, right? And it just, we talk about wellness all the time. We talk about teacher wellness, and it's like, shouldn't it happen also during their school day? I had a rotating sub today because I had a full day of SSTs where we had parent meetings and whatnot, right? And I put an hour block for every parent because I never know how long the conversation's going to be. And so for some parents, it's like we finished in 30 minutes. And then the teacher was like, what do I got to do? Do I got to go? Like, what do I got to do now?
What's the
I'm
next
just
thing?
like, sit, relax, take a deep breath, take care of your body if you need to go take care of your body. But this is like your time to rest right now. Let the sub do their thing and just sit and rest. If you want to go for a walk, go for a walk. Our next appointment's going to come in 30 minutes from now, But it's just like, I wish I could build that more into the day for my teachers, because it's just so on the go in the classrooms for them that they need this time of rest. Not just during recess time and lunchtime, right? I wonder if they have a little moment of pause while students are doing their independent work. But at the same time, we're like, oh, when students are doing independent work, you shouldn't be sitting at your desk.
Kids. Yeah.
You shouldn't be sitting at your desk. You should be rotating around and checking in to see if students need to do. So it's like, when are we going to give them rest? When do we give them that rest that they need? Friday at 3 p.m.? I don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think any of us have any answers, right? Like, we went from beating the shit out of teachers all over the country for what we were doing in education, right? How we were not teaching them the correct thing or teaching them the wrong thing, and we needed a course correction. I mean, we've just been political punching bags for a number of years, definitely during the last Trump administration. And then while Biden was in office and while Obama was in office, the right was pounding on education. And now here we are again. Now our newest problem of the day is that we might have potential raids at our schools, and what does that mean, and the anxiety that that's causing. So I'm super sensitive to our educators and how they are going to try to navigate through this. And I will share with you, I don't know that it is fair for us to ask them to be agents of change, or if it's fair to ask them to carry the torch and go into the marches, because they're just trying to teach the kids in their classroom and take care of themselves on a Wednesday evening.
Right. And I think, like we've talked about in other episodes, about, along with that, being okay with feeling vulnerable and just communicating to your students, even in class, like, hey, I'm feeling, stuck today, or hey, I'm worried about the families that are impacted by these potential ICE raids, and just saying that, modeling, because really that's like, at the end of the day, that's like, teachers are They're motivators, guides, models, coaches,
Parents,
parents.
sometimes they're parenting these kids. Yeah, I mean, this is
Yeah,
where I worry because now, I mean, the news last week was raids, right? And that there really are no sanctuary locations anymore now. Churches and schools are fair game. And then the news today that came out from the latest reports in the latest actions from federal government are that they're now looking at loss of funding. So that means for our federally funded positions in high poverty districts all over the country, they may not be able to pay the bill to pay those teachers because they are paid out of a grant. They don't get that money in one pot. It trickles throughout the year. And now all of a sudden they might be sitting there going, oh, okay, now I don't even have money. So it's just this like ongoing, it's building. And so I want our teachers to know you do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. That's my message to you.
absolutely.
This is going to sound crazy, but this is the stuff that runs through my mind as a principal, right? Are we going to have another practice drill? Or another drill to practice. We already have fire drills. We have our earthquake drills. Added to the list a few years ago was the active shooter drill. We have our lockdown drill. Now are we going to add an ice raid drill?
Oh,
And
so horrible.
it's just like, I don't want to think about this, right? I really, really don't. But at the same time, I'm like, how do we protect our students? And some of these things will probably need to be practiced, you know? And it breaks my heart. Active shooter drills are so scary for our students. Lockdown drills are so scary. I still remember being a kindergarten teacher, my kids crying in the classrooms because they were scared. They were really scared, even though I had given parents the warning beforehand to be like, hey, please talk to your children about this practice that we're going to have. But then sometimes in the thick of things, children do get scared because we also have to turn off all the lights to
Hmm.
pretend that we're not in the classroom, right? And now it's like, are we going to have a new drill?
Yeah, who knows?
I hope not.
I
But
hope
you
not
raise a good
too.
point. This is our new reality, at least for, 4+ years.
Right. And I'm just, and when I think of the like the active shooter drills, the man who shot the insurance CEO, right?
Hmm.
And how all of the other insurance CEOs are all of a sudden really scared to go to work. And I'm like, oh, now are you scared to go to work, sir? Like, are you scared? What about the children? Like, now do you care about how the children are feeling?
Right.
And you told us to just go back to school, go back to work. There's nothing to worry about when school shootings happen on a regular basis. But these CEOs are not going to work because they're scared. Well, maybe. And I was really, really hoping that I'm like, all right, y'all are rich CEOs. Maybe y'all can change the law about gun control.
Mm. Boy, that'd be something.
Right? Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be something? I'm just like, this is the time to use your power, white man. But I don't know if all CEOs, all insurance CEOs are white males, right? I'm just made a general blanket statement. I probably shouldn't
That
have
you're
done that.
pretty close. That's all right. We're going to forgive you on that one because,
Yeah.
you could take that one to the bank. I bet you're okay with that. All right,
But what do
y'all.
you think
So,
about the? Don't mean to talk over you. What do we think about this idea for this episode of ending it with some kind of either a piece of wisdom that you're going to follow or show others, or like an intention for ourselves to set maybe for this week or these next couple weeks, and maybe we can help inspire others to set intentions.
I like that. I like that because I was just going to say, hey, how are you guys feeling about a message as we wrap up today's episode? So, since I'm talking, I'll go ahead and go first. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to breathe and breathe a lot and breathe fully. The breath where you actually breathe in through your nose and you count to 5 and you hold it for 4 and then you breathe out through your mouth, counting to 7. That in and out, you could do boxed breathing, but just breathe because breathing will help you recalibrate your nervous system. It'll help you reset when you're about to say something that you really don't want to. It's a great thing to teach your students. Breathing can really help. So that's my message for you. Breathe a lot.
And I'm going to say capital letters hope, that you're not alone in any of this, and there are others in your community, and even if it's a small community or a large community, we are all in this together. And no matter what you're going through, that there is hope and light. And even if you don't think you have any energy left, you do. And we can make things happen if we put our mind to that. And so be hopeful. You got this.
And for my message is just schools are safe places. We will always and forever be a safe place for our students, barring no active shooters, right? But in general, schools are a safe place, and we make sure our teachers go out of their way, our staff goes out of their way every single day to make sure that the students feel safe and that the students are safe, and we watch out for them. And we thank you for sending your kids to school.
Go out there and do the good work.
Mm-hmm. And use your voice. Please, please use your voice and amplify the voices of those who really need their voices amplified as well.
So you all know where to find us. We have a website. What's it called?
Struggleforchange.com.
And we are on Facebook, and we are on Instagram, and we are on TikTok, and we're probably going to go to a couple new platforms because we might end up abandoning some platforms depending whether or not they get bought by the federal government. To be determined. So share with your friends. Take care out there.
Bye.
Bye for now. Until next time.